generated at hospitals, pharmaceutical industries like syringes, gloves, drugs, chemicals, half-used bottles are generally segregated manually, which is extremely time-consuming. Moreover, it is very harmful and fatal for workers handling these types of wastes. Herein, we propose an AI-based conveyor belt waste management system as a solution, and this is an automated waste segregation system that is controlled by an app which will result in no human contact. Our design includes a conveyor system controlled by a classifier that will scan the waste generated and use machine learning algorithms which will be based on the classifier to categorize the waste into appropriate processing compartments. This is a layout of the app that will be used by the operator. With the help of the app, he will get pictures of the wastes that are currently being scanned in the assembly line. The operator can then choose to select one of those compartments which we are depicting here as bins, and likewise those selected items will be pushed to that specific bin. And once we have the AI and machine learning algorithm in place, we can have one of those bin symbols displayed as highlighted, than the others to indicate which bin was selected by the algorithm. Now, if the operator is satisfied with the algorithm's classification, he can also do a swipe up, a feature that we also have in Tinder, so that the system gets a positive feedback. Or else, if the user receives unsatisfactory results or outputs from the system, the app will automatically give this feedback to the algorithm that the auto-classified bin was not correct and the user should select the particular bin, so that in future when something similar comes up, the algorithm can classify it to the correct bin. This way, the algorithm keeps improving itself and eventually the operator will need to give least manual input. We propose open source image detection and classification algorithms and libraries to develop a set of web services with which all other components will communicate to perform subtasks, like uploading images to the server, cleaning up raw data, run image classifier, instruct conveyor belt to fork out items to identified channels, upload audit log to the cloud, etc. As it is depicted here, that syringes, needles will be forked out in container 1, chemical bottles, vials will be collected in container 2, and so on. Bottles containing carcinogenic or cytotoxic chemicals then can be further processed onto the unit 1 block where they will be neutralized and rinsed off in an automated facility. Hence, that will further reduce human interaction and thus the risk of infection spread. We intend to keep an option for human overrides as well in this case, like in case the supervising personnel wish to alter the machine classification results or provide feedback for the same, that will be used as a feedback for the ML algorithm to improve itself iteratively, about which we talked before while discussing about the app layout. This will also serve as a fallback option for when the system cannot classify an input. The complete dataset with necessary images will be reported to the concerned authorities, ensuring accountability. In this way, our system will be responsible for all proper auditing and avoiding misuse, malfunctioning, or illegal work and ensuring total safety. Installment of a tagging system to the fresh new products entering the hospital is necessary to ensure vigilance. This will help us to batch the used syringes in different subcategories so as to ensure their disposal at the Unit 2, where they will be finally processed. This tagging system will ensure that these used syringes won't be vended illegally to individuals for non-intended purposes. This system will also help in avoiding illegal selling of expired drugs by maintaining a log of all items discarded, which will be pushed out to the appropriate authorities for auditing. In current times, an immediate use case is the assurance that used PPE kits which are disposed are not used without proper sterilization. We solely believe that our system ensures proper and moreover efficient, safe disposal of waste. And there are lots of scope for this innovation and can be used for wider spectrum of possibilities.
Good evening everyone. This is our presentation for Videovation and I'll be talking about our track biomedical waste. We have chosen two problems, that is segregation of waste and the disposal. First, let's talk about the regulation. The first rules were enacted in 1989 and since then amendments have been made in 2016. There are four major relevant changes. First, the number of segregation categories has been brought down to 4 to ease segregation. Segregation should be done at the source now rather than in an intermediate step or at the end. The incinerators that are used have to be upgraded or modified to adhere to the latest norms, but that has not been possible due to the inherent fault of the process. This is the segregation that has been brought upon. There are four categories. Red corresponds to the infected plastics, yellow is the anatomical biological waste, blue is the glassware, and transparent is the sharps, needles and metals. This is our solution, wherein we propose the collection and sorting in the hospitals in a common hospital facility rather than going at the intermediate step and sorting there. We propose the use of color-coded bags rather than the common black bags. These color-coded bags can then be labeled with a barcode, since barcodes are a very cost-effective technology. The institution can then go for scanning by weight and recording a report of the generated waste. This will help the waste management company. Can this be automated? And the result is in one of the latest research papers published in 2020 by Indian students. This is one of their sensors that they made using MATLAB. I highly recommend this paper. Let's talk about the second section, that is the disposal of waste. Incineration is a technique that is very commonly used for disposal of most categories of waste. It involves the burning of waste in the presence of air atmosphere, leading to the reduction of volume by about 75 to 80%. The advantages include the ease of operation and low cost, but the disadvantage is that it's a very polluting process. The reason it is used is because it's a traditional process and has been around for 30-40 years. The question is, what are the hazards? And the compounds that you see in the chemical structures here are the dioxins and furans that are produced from incineration. They accumulate in the food chain and large amount of concerning toxins have been found in human breast milk in New Delhi and Mumbai. The ash from incinerator is also very toxic and the Philippines and Denmark have banned the use of incinerators. We propose pyrolysis as a greener alternative to incinerators. The process involves the use of nitrogen as an inert atmosphere, and it involves the use of plasma that is made from an electric arc as the energy source rather than coal or diesel. The advantages include the lower emission and the inert products and byproducts, but the disadvantage is the higher electricity cost and the replacement cost for plasma arcs. The process is to take in polyolefins, to take in an inert nitrogen atmosphere, pyrolyze it to get waxes, and if you want simpler product, then you can go for cracking, which leads to light olefins. The products include hydrocarbon chemicals, which can go as feedstock for chemical industry. Apart from that, you get fuels, which can go into boilers or steam generation. You can get electricity and heat from the pyrolysis process itself. The reason we propose pyrolysis rather than incineration is because dioxins and furans are not formed, as you can see in the yellow box. It is much below the detectable limits. The soot and NOx are as per the CPCB norms, and the consumables are electricity and plasma rather than diesel or core. In conclusion, we would like to propose segregation at the source using RFID or barcode and colored bags, and we propose pyrolysis as an environmental friendly process. I'd like to thank BCP, ACC, my teammates and our mentors, and these are our references.
Hello everyone. So me and my team are making a video on an effective method to eliminate PFAs or polyfluoroalkyl substances, also referred to as forever chemicals. So starting with the problem, perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances are man-made, environmentally persistent contaminants used in many industrial, military and consumer products. Treatment methods are needed to effectively sequester or destroy a variety of PFAS from groundwater, drinking water, and wastewater. Due to the strong carbon-fluorine bond, many of the PFAS can be very persistent in the environment with a degradation period of years, decades, or longer. Two of the most studied PFAS are the perfluorooctanoic acid and the perfluorooctane sulfonate, as you can see that in the image. Now there are different types of PFAS that are found in the environment, starting with the perfluorinated chemicals. Now these are the chemicals with every CH bond substituted with the CH bond, and an example is shown. The second are the perfluoroalkyl acids, which are basically an aliphatic carbon backbone, and all the CH bonds are substituted with the CH bond along with the functional group. The third are the polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are nothing but the polymers of the above stated chemicals. Now, as you can see in the image, there is something known as a CAS number. So, CAS is a registry number which is unique or numerical identifier that is assigned by the Chemical Abstract Services. It basically tells you that, for example, the acetone and dimethyl ketone are actually the same molecule. Talking about the issues regarding PFAs, the first thing is persistent. The stability of CF bond makes them resistant to hydrolysis, photolysis, and biodegradation, and therefore they are referred to as forever chemicals. Second is mobility. Many of the PFAs are highly water soluble and water miscible, and therefore they have a low absorption onto the solvent. Third is bioaccumulation. So they have a very high bioaccumulation potential. And the fourth one is toxicokinetics, which states that the PFAs have a longer half-lives than humans. Now the image there shows the issues of the PFAs on the human health. Now, this is a very interesting image that shows the emerging awareness of PFAs occurrence in the environment. Although some PFAs have been manufactured since the 1950s, PFAs are not widely documented in the environmental samples. The early detection of PFAS in the environmental media was hindered by the analytical capability challenges arising from the unique surface active properties of the PFAS. Since the 2000 methods have been and continue to be developed with the lower detection limits in water, expanded list of long and short chain PFAS and some potential precursor to PFAS such as the follow-telomers are being looked upon recently. Because of the widespread use and environmental persistence, most of the people have been exposed to the PFAS chemical. Some of the PFAS chemical can accumulate and can stay in the human body for longer period of time because of the similarity in structure as that of fatty acid. There is an evidence that exposure to certain PFAS may lead to adverse health effects, as we have seen in the earlier slide. The image explains the level of certain PFAS in the serum of rat, mouse and humans and an estimated half-life of the same. Now coming to the method for eliminating these PFAs that we are proposing. The idea is simple. Elimination of these using sorption process. Sorption can occur through two main interaction, electrostatic and hydrophobic. The electrostatic can be a common sorption mechanism for PFAS since the pK values of PFOA and PFOS are 0.5 and minus 2.3 respectively. This compound will likely be in anionic form and absorb strongly to the positively charged material due to electrostatic interaction. Hydrophobic interaction may likely occur between the perfluoroalkyl and the hydrophobic surfaces of the sorbent, especially for the longer CF chain length. A way of eliminating these compounds from the sample can be by granular activated carbon. Granular activated carbons are one of the most widely used adsorbents for various treatment. Activated carbons have a porous structure with strong heterogeneous surfaces and has been used to absorb various organic compounds due to the low cost and versatility. ACs are produced from almost any of the carbonation material by placing the carbon in a tank without oxygen and subjecting it to an extremely high temperature about 600 to 900 degrees Celsius. Afterwards, the carbon is exposed to different chemicals and again it is placed in a tank which is superheated from 600 to 1200 degrees Celsius. This option can be cost effective by considering the adsorbent regeneration and further destruction of the PFAS, which is often referred to as a reactivation. Is a method of thermally processing the activated carbon to destroy the adsorbed component that is contained on its surface. Since higher temperatures are needed for the reactivation, the adsorbed material is thermally degraded to the smaller aldehyde ketones or monomers that can be reused in many of the ways. Now on the slide you can see the various examples of the activated carbon that are present commercially. And also studies have shown that these activated carbons are more effective with the molecules that are having more number of CF bonds. So talking about the future perspective, it will be having a wide scope in future when PFA awareness goes high. Also, while proposing a method, the degradation parameter, decomposition products and defluorination yields should be taken into account. And at the same time, one must also think about the economical and the versatility parameters of the product. So these are some of the references that we have referred to propose our idea. Thank you.